This next item, some would argue, goes just a little too far in terms of political correctness. Sesame Street, the quintessential show for kids, was recently released on DVD. But there is a warning at the beginning of this DVD, a warning that says Sesame Street DVDs, believe it or not, are for adults and may not be suitable for kids. Here's a look.
Welcome to Sesame Street Nostalgia. I am Bob, your host, and I want you to know that these early Sesame Street episodes are intended for grown-ups and may not suit the needs of today's preschool child.
Dr. Shirley Steinberg is our resident sociologist and culturologist, and she's here with us. And so, Shirley, help me to make sense of this, because when I heard about this, I thought, you got to be kidding me. We're at the point now where there's a warning about Sesame Street.
I felt the same way. You've got to be kidding me. And after I watched it, and watched it again. Now, this is from 1969, and in the first 10 years have the warning on them. I was amazed at things that I would be uncomfortable if I wasn't sitting with a 4-year-old. For instance, strange men on the street meeting 4-year-old little girls with no other grown-ups around and inviting them for cookies. So I understand that with a little bit of parenting to say, hey, you don't do this, but this is the way this used to be. The political correctness, though, I think it's deeper than that. Sesame Street has always been very conscious of how things appear to the world and to children. And so I think there is a political correctness gone awry that's happening here.
One of the things that people have been theorizing, because it's not quite clear exactly what they mean by that, but the idea that maybe Oscar is too much of a grouch, so it's encouraging antisocial behavior, or the Cookie Monster eating trans fat cookies, Mr. Hooper giving ice cream to kids, you know, maybe he's a pedophile. I mean, this is what we're going towards.
Well, and you know, in his store, the very first scene of his store, you see cigar boxes that are sold in his store. Maybe so, but of course Sesame Street is directed for sort of from birth to 4-year-olds, so I don't know that children ever catch those nuances. It's not like everybody has a cigarette hanging out of their mouth. The idea that Oscar is a grouch, well, it's a pretty antisocial time, so I don't know that that's bad to introduce children to grumpy people. There was a big criticism in the very early days that Cookie Monster's English was bad, because he would say, me want cookie, and there was this hysteria that every person's child would run around saying, me want cookie, but that didn't happen. The Sesame Street generation seems to have made it beyond that and does ask for cookies in appropriate English.
Do you think there's a danger in sort of trying to put our kids into a bubble in which they are taught that every stranger is a potential pedophile, every child is a potential bully, that there are dangers all around? Or, I mean, should they not be taught that some of life's lessons are to be learned by themselves?
Yeah, maybe they should be taught to use their brains, to think, to be critical, to be able to watch. And that's what's happening, is we're not teaching our children. We're putting them in the bubble, but not explaining when we can go in and out of the bubble. And it is scary. We're creating a culture of fear, as I've talked about before.
Right.
Are we going to be afraid of everybody? Is there ever someone that is innocently a kind person? We just saw a situation in the news where a child was lost and afraid to call out to a stranger because the child had been told, don't talk to strangers. There's ridiculousness, and political correctness can create ridiculousness.
All right, Shirley Steinberg, thanks very much for this.
Good to see you, Todd.
And even still, it's still a great thing to watch.
It is.
You were enjoying it, huh?
It is.
All right, we're going to throw things back to Frank, who is at Carlisle Elementary. Frank.